Hey guys, today's from the install bay. We have a 45th anniversary edition Chevy Camaro that we're going to use the new pack dash kit on. We're going to install a Sony AX100.
Stay tuned.
When you get into the Camaro, the first thing you need to do is remove the cool center piece here. There's two screws at the base of this radio that will allow this piece to come off. Now, the one thing you need to be careful about is the cigarette lighter. The cigarette lighter loves to scratch the top of the gear shifter. So we have some blue tape. We're going to tape it up, tape up the bottom of the cigarette lighter. We're going to move this thing back. Take your panel pry tool. Just loosen this up. You get that side? And we're going to take some tape, reach in there. I like to do 2 layers because you can never be too safe. And then I also like to put some on the bottom of the cigarette lighter towards the front, where you'll see there's the power wire and how it connects. It's got a really sharp point on it. So the tape just needs to be loosely on there. Alright, go ahead. Let's put it in gear. Now the other thing too is when you're taking it out, be careful of this area here and this area here. For some reason that's another area in the car that just loves to get scratched. So just gently slide this out and come up with it and over, and you can set it aside or unplug it. We're not going to unplug it because the car is on. Now there's 2 7mm bolts at the base of the radio. Go ahead and unplug those. Alright, so take your panel tool. Gently caress. You'll see it pop out. Pull forward. All right, now at this point we're going to go ahead and put it back in park, turn the key off, and we can go ahead and unplug everything. There you go. So this is the radio here. This piece we're going to need to retain so that we can build our dash kit. So we're going to set this over on the bench. We're going to get this piece out here, and we're going to start modifying the dash, running the Bluetooth mic, and all the accessories that it may or may not need. Going crazy? I'll put the screws over here. Perfect. So now we have the main wiring. Harness, the FM antenna, which is the fatter one of the two, and the Sirius XM, if you're planning on retaining that. The only thing missing from here is the USB. We'll get to that in a minute. So let's take a look and see what comes in the box. Instruction manual. The replacement bezel, as well as the side brackets. A pocket if you're going to do a single din. And 2 bags of wiring harnesses. Now we're going to save the box so that we can put the factory radio parts back in it when we're done. Let's check out the 2 bags. So this is the amplified antenna turn on. So as you notice, it has a blue wire here. If the radio you're installing only has a blue-white wire, hook this up to the red wire in the harness instead of the blue-white. You can also remove this foam and tape it up if you'd like some extra room. A harness. The main harness. This is the USB adapter. So this allows you to retain your factory USB. As you notice, it's pretty long because you have to go to the center console and then run this forward. So the first thing to come out of the second bag is the aux adapter. So we have the USB, we have the aux. We're going to go ahead and take these both over to Fernando so that he can run these. So also in the second bag, if the car has the factory backup camera in the radio, here's the retention cable for that. This is the chime module, so it takes the chimes out of the factory speakers and go ahead and moves them into this. That's great if you're replacing the speakers with something of higher end or whatnot. You don't want those high-end speakers going bang, 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 bang. And then of course the brain itself. So here on the side of the pack module, like all pack modules, is the rotary knob to tell it what kind of radio you're hooking up for the steering wheel controls. You always want to set this first. So let's go ahead and open the owner's manual. We'll go to page 5. For this we're putting in a Sony, so we want to make sure it's set to 8. Take a simple screwdriver, go ahead and move it to 8. Now we're pretty sure nothing's going to bump into this, but we're going to go ahead and cover it with tape anyways.
So to get to the aux and the USB, you want to put the seats all the way forward, and we want to unclip the side panels. If you see it right here, of both sides, and then you want to unscrew two screws on this side and 2 screws on the passenger side, and this part unclips out.
Here you go, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now that we have a clear view of the USB and the aux, I want to go and plug ours. If you notice, the USB are the same also with the with the aux. Okay, and make sure you run the wires to the driver's side, because in the passenger side we have the brake, the emergency brake, and you don't want to be like caught into the emergency brake. Now let's go and put these wires up. Okay, so now that we have our wires all ready to go, let's go and plug it in. Okay, so and like I said before, make sure you want to run the wires to the driver's side. You want to go and zip tie up.
So on the harness it has an auxiliary input because not all the radios have the USB aux in the center console. For those that just have straight up auxiliary, no USB, that's what this is for. Ours doesn't have that, so we're just going to go ahead and cap these off. Now in this harness here, we have the steering wheel controls. This little 4-pin guy right here. Now there's a blue yellow wire on it as well as an aux jack looking thing. Depending on radio manufacturers, you're going to need one or the other. Kenwood and JVC typically use the blue yellow. Everyone else uses this guy here. If you want to remove it from your harness so you don't have it laying around, go ahead. Otherwise, make sure you cap it off. And then we have the main harness is actually going to hook up to the radio. Normally we like to build the kit first, but today we're going to work on the harness and get that out of the way. we're just going to go ahead and put some shrink wrap over these to protect them, and also so they don't rattle around in the dash. Now on the car harness side, there's really nothing to do. There's no wires to interact with other than the aux. So once you've prettied them up, you're done with this portion of it. Now where these are going to plug in on the radio is this is the warning tape that says set the steering wheel controls. So you can go ahead and undo that. We have the vehicle connector, which is going to be your main power, which is going to have the yellow and black in it. And then you have the speaker. Now there's two choices for speaker. You have the amplified system and the standard system. So if your car has the Boston acoustic stereo in it like this one does, you want to make sure you plug the speaker into the amplified input. Now if you get this wrong, one of two things is going to happen. If you have a standard system and you plug it into the amplified, you'll get no sound. And if you have an amplified system and you plug it into the standard system, it'll be extremely loud at low volumes. So that's how you can figure out if you accidentally get it wrong. Now we'll move on to the harness. This little guy here is a relay that they install. The reason they do that is because the brain only puts out a small amount of current to turn on just the radio. But what if you want to hook up like the amplified antenna or a backup camera or something like that? So they install this relay so you can turn on multiple things with this red wire. So on page 4, it gives you a breakdown of what all the wiring for the radio is, what all these colors are. But we'll go over them real quick just to, save time. Red is accessory, black is ground, yellow is battery. You have your two whites, which are driver's front. You have your two grays, which are passenger front. You have two greens, which are driver's rear, and you have two purples that are passenger rear. Now these aren't the only purples that are in the harness. You also have a purple white, which is your reverse turn on. You have a pink, which is the vehicle speed sense wire, which 99.9% of the time you will not need. You have the light green, which is the parking brake wires. You have the orange white, which is your illumination. This is what's going to dim the radio when you turn on your factory headlights. You have the blue white wire, which is the amplifier turn on. This is going to turn on the factory amplifier. You definitely want to hook this up to your radio's blue white wire. And then you have another blue wire. This is there again, this could be for use to turn on the amplified antenna. So even though this has one as well, the car may also, depending on model, may have it run through the smart harness. So you're going to take both of these and connect them to this red wire. So this is the Sony harness here that we're going to marriage up with this. A lot of people ask, how do you do bypasses on radios? This is a Sony, so it's pretty simple. You just do ground it, unlike Pioneer and Alpine. The other thing to note too is that the purple white wire in the harness is for reverse. Anytime you do a smart harness, if it has a reverse output, even if you're not doing a backup camera, go ahead and hook it up. It saves you time later if you do decide to add one. So the one wire we forgot to talk about is the brown loop wire that's right here. Now brown loop right here, it says see note 4 page 5, and on page 5 it talks about where to cut it if your radio has a mute input, which the Sony does not. What this will allow you to do is when you press the OnStar button, it'll mute the radio, and or in this case just shut it off so that you can use OnStar. We're going to leave the loop out because sometimes if it shuts off the radio, it actually you lose sound altogether because you're turning off the power for the amplifier. So sometimes you do have to just cut it, turn the volume down, and then use OnStar. So now we've gone ahead and connected all the blue wires to the accessory, with the exception of the blue white. These are just blue, solid blue wires. These are the antenna wires. So So this tape that we're using for this is a brand called Tesa. This is interior felt tape. This is the stuff that the factory uses to wrap their harnesses in. If you'd like to get some for your install, we'll put a link in the description. So now our harness is ready. Let's go ahead and finish plugging it in. We have the giant guy here. Go ahead and plug that in. This is for the chime module. Now what we like to do is put a little piece of Velcro on the back of this so that we can stick it somewhere. Then we have the steering wheel controls. Alright, so now this is ready. Let's move on to the kit.
Okay, so now that we're done with the USB and aux, we're gonna go and run our Bluetooth mic. According with the page 7, we need to cut the metal plastic of the dash and the 2 pins on the side. So we're gonna go and do that first. Okay, and for the pins, you want to cut it when the pins start, like right here.
Alright, so let's take a closer look at the kit side by side. What we're going to do is we're going to remove these guys here and we're going to install them in here. These are the new locks. They're shaped a little bit differently than the factory ones, as well as here's the hazard and here's the hazard. When you tip the screens up like this, you'll notice this little guy right here. This is for your temperature. It's also going to have a cool little flash thing it does that you can change for 8 different displays, like if you wanted to say SS or Camaro or a bow tie or whatnot. So it's kind of cool. The color is pretty much spot on. I mean, you can't even really see the difference. If you'll notice that the tubes are a little bit longer, that's because they did have to change the angle slightly, but it will not affect the gauge cluster that sits below it. So let's get to moving these parts around. So the instructions do a really good job of walking you through the steps required to get all the parts off. So we're going to go ahead and start with removing these 2 screws here. Now most of the screws on this are going to be a Phillips #1, not a #2. I also recommend using a screwdriver instead of a drill. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but these are all plastic pieces with small screws, so take your time, really no hurry. Go ahead and remove this little plastic piece. There's 2 little pry tabs here, these 2 little clips. These clips here and here, you just gotta remove this. Now, according to the instructions on step 3, there's supposed to be a clip here. It's actually on the back side. Actually, let's just continue on and remove all these little screws that we know we're gonna have to remove. Go ahead and remove these 2 top clips here. Okay, so now we got this off. If we rotate this around, we can get to the harness that they're talking about here and unplug it. So we're done with this. We'll go ahead and set it aside for right now. So now that we have the back panel off, what we want to do is remove these 3 screws here, these 3 screws here. There's a screw here and a screw here. We want to remove those so that we can remove the knobs off the front. Alright, Alright, so now we want to flip the kit over. Gently remove these guys here. Make sure you set them down, you put them in the right order so that you don't accidentally, do a shell game here. Now, there's 4 screws inside of here. We want to remove those. That's these little guys right here. Flip it back over. Go ahead, remove these 2 black guys here. Now we can go ahead and set this aside. Now we want to take these guys and mount them back into the new kit, starting with the back and then moving to the front, using the same screws that we removed. Now we want to flip it over and replace the 4 screws we took out. Okay, so at this point, to recap, we should have these 4 screws on each side screwed in, and we should have these 2 little pain in the butt screws put on each side. Now we can go ahead and add in the knobs. Now the knobs have little pins that need to line up, so make sure you line those up. And they'll sit flush, so make sure you're, and totally straight. Then go ahead and flip it over, and we're going to replace the 2 screws that we removed. Make sure to not over tighten, so twist it, make sure that all the buttons are functioning normally. Then repeat to the other side. So now at this point, these should work good. All the buttons should still move. On the back side, there's little clips here that these actually snap into. You want to make sure that those are all clipped in and that these are tight. We're going to go ahead and add on the 2 white body panel clips that we removed. Those just easily snap on here, like that. And at this point, the kit is now built. So this was all we had to do. Now we have this plug right here, which is going to be what the mysterious white plug was in the beginning. And we were like, what is this guy here? Now it's got these 2 extra wires on it, so let's talk about those for a minute. Also, at this point, you're probably going to want to wash your hands, because the goo that was on these knobs is more than likely all over your fingers, and you don't want to get it all over the kit. Also, take one of the plastic bags that one of the harnesses came in, and take all your extra screws and go ahead and put those in one of those plastic bags, so you have them for when you need to reassemble the radio. On page 8, it gives you the option for installation of PAC HVAC control panel and installation of PAC HVAC control panel with the MyLink radio, which is the lower of the 2. Now, if you just have the basic radio, you're going to use the top instructions, the non-MyLink radio. And it's a simple plug and play. All you have to do is take this end, plug it into the kit, take this end, factory plugs into that, tape these wires up. If you have the bottom of the 2, it comes with the 2 extension wires, and you're going to have to run these over to the BCM so that the controls for the air conditioning and whatnot will function properly. So now all we have to do is plug these in here, right there, and this is ready to go into the car. So the last step is mounting the radio to the factory brackets. Now these 2 guys are the factory brackets, and what we got here is this little goofy thing here. This is if you're doing a single DIN, this is what holds that pocket in, so we want to remove those. Now for all you guys unfamiliar with the Sony, this is what the Sony looks like. It's a bit odd. It's a single DIN with a double DIN face. So on the brackets there is an L and an R. So we want to go ahead and loosely put these on here so that we can figure out where this needs to go on the dash. Because it is the Sony, we can only do these 2 top bolts. There won't be anything holding into the bottom, which shouldn't be an issue. It never has. So we're going to start with about a 1/4 inch gap between the trim and the radio. Alright, let's take it over to the car and see if it fits. So now we have everything set the way it needs to be. So before we put this in the car, what we want to do is box up all the old equipment. So we have this guy here. We have this guy here. We have this bag of screws. Now we'll go ahead and we'll snap this cover back over these guys here. Cover that. We have an extra bag, we can put that all in. Keep that safe. We kept the bubble wrap bag that our aftermarket kit came in, so we'll go ahead and put that there. And of course we still have the box. Go ahead and remove the useless cardboard. We'll put our aftermarket radio in. Our dash kit. And our extra panel. And then once we're done with the programming of the car, we'll go ahead and throw the instruction manual in there also. That way, in case the guy moves and he needs to have this redone, we'll have the instructions for it. So let's put this in the car. Alright, so we have all the stuff done inside the car. We're going to go ahead and plug in and do our final testing and then get it out of here. So main harness gets plugged in. Antenna adapter. We have the wires Fernando run. Our Bluetooth mic. We have the AC control wire. Let's go ahead and start plugging this guy in. There you go. It's a steering wheel control. Now it's always nice to have two people when you're working on a car like this, just because there's so much stuff to plug in. And you know, it's nice to just to have things to hold. So we're going to go ahead and plug in the air conditioning controls and just leave them down here on the ground. Alright. So do you have the keys? Go ahead and turn it on. Where's that little box? So this is the chime module, and on the side of the chime module is a little screw. And you can use that screw to adjust how loud this thing is. So if it's too loud, you can turn it down. So for right now, we're going to disconnect it so that we can do all our testing without it going crazy. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn it to tuner. See if there's volume. Check. Alright. Source is working. Cool. Let's go ahead and make sure our USB is working. I'll plug in my phone. Alright, so we got CarPlay just showed up. Let's make sure our microphone is working. Go ahead and give me a call. Hello. Let's end it. Let's go ahead and do voice. What's the weather going to be like today?
Okay, the temperature today will range between 73 degrees and 93 degrees.
I think it's more towards the 93 degrees. Alright, so all our things are functioning. We're going to go on here, hold this. We're going to go on and test the air conditioning control panel. We have our temperature is working. Fan. We'll hit the lock, unlock. hazards are working. So we're good there. We're gonna go ahead and mount everything back in the dash and get this guy out of here. And then of course, once we get it all in the dash, we'll do one more check. All right, so we're gonna do one final test just to make sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to. All right, so awesome, everything works the way it's supposed to. The kit looks amazing. I love this kit because it looks factory. You know, we got to keep the we got to keep these, so it's definitely way better than the other two kits that are available for this car. Now, if you guys have one of the other two kits and you're like, man, I really want to upgrade to this one, you have to still have the factory bezel. If you've sold it, you can't do it because you need these factory parts in order to use this kit. So if you have your old factory radio and your bezel, you can upgrade to this to get back to that cool factory look. Otherwise,
thank you for watching. You guys can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
We hope you enjoyed this. If you guys want to check us out live, you can see us Monday nights, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. We do the Facebook Live question and answer show. Otherwise, check us out daily on Facebook Live and also Sundays for the weekly vlog wrap-up. Cool, right. Whatever you want to call it. All right, guys, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you later next time.
Bye.